Still have those like 6 downloads in Brussels, Belgium, every week. No idea who they are.
Shout out to the Brussels crew.
That is so
Amazing.
cool.
That's amazing.
Love those guys. All right. Well, we are live and on the air. So, welcome back to another episode of What in the World podcast on this fine Sunday evening after we took a little break last week since I was with Alex in Nebraska. And then at the time of the podcast was getting my bags from baggage claim in Philadelphia. So, but we are back and we are happy to have Julie and Steve here from the Through the Glass Recovery podcast, of which Alex did an episode. Ooh, what was that?
I don't even remember when that was. I think it was like in March.
Back in March?
Maybe.
I think that was it was either February or March. Yep.
February or March.
And he's gonna be back on again. He's coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, he's coming back. News to me,
baby.
News to me.
He's coming back.
Sick.
We call that a recurrent. Okay. All right.
Yes, we do. That's like a special thing around here, right?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it is.
I don't consider myself important in many facets of life, but on the Through the Glass Recovery podcast, I consider myself, somewhat important, I guess.
You are important to us, Alex.
Yeah.
All of our guests are important to us,
Yeah.
man. These stories that people share, like their lives, that stuff is so important. It needs to be out there. So, yeah, all of you guys that are willing to come talk and stuff, it's amazing. We appreciate you guys.
Yeah, it's like go ahead.
I was just gonna say I had so much fun and just like honest, genuine conversation with complete strangers over a Zoom call. I left my office that day feeling like that was really good. Like that, not only was that fun, like because you're on a podcast and I typically don't get to be in your shoes that you're in right now as the guest. I'm typically on this end. So it was like fun to just like no prep work, no making sure everybody's got their, invites and everything. It's just sit down, plug in. And I really enjoyed it. And I do want to say that my wife is a huge fan of y'all's podcasts. It was a couple months ago. I do like a little like stretch routine. I'm tall and I have a bad back. For 34, I'm an old man. And I'm like stretching and she like fixing a nail or something and she's got her podcast playing over there and I'm like, man, that guy sounds a lot like Steve. That lady sounds like Julie. I'm like, are you listening to Through the Glass? She's like, yeah, I am. I'm like, wow, that's cool. That's really cool. So
That's amazing. How
Yeah,
neat.
that's
That's super
yes,
cool. Now, she's not sober though, right? Or in recovery?
she's not necessarily in recovery. She's been sober since I have, drinking in solidarity with me.
Okay.
But she was never a big drinker to begin with. Like she doesn't really enjoy drinking alcohol that much. Um, but in fact, I was just talking to her on the way home from the mall to who were going to be our guests, talking about how she listens, and she's like, "Yeah, it really does kind of help me a perspective." Um, she has a family member, without getting into too many details about this specific person, that really, really struggles with alcoholism, type thing, and off the wagon, and
Mm.
it I think it helps her just to get a perspective of what our brains look like, a
hmm
little bit of people who struggle with that. So,
Hmm. No, that's
yeah,
really
she's
cool. And really, too, we have gotten so many emails and messages from people that they don't struggle with addiction, but most of our topics are about like dealing with life and life issues, things like authenticity and anxiety, and like you don't have to be an addict or an alcoholic or have an alcohol problem or whatever to be able to relate to a lot of those things. So we actually have a lot of listeners that aren't in recovery that just also have, I mean, we all have stuff to do, right?
yeah,
So,
it's interesting. Sometimes even once we get past uh, lot of the times in an episode, like we don't even mention alcohol. A lot of it is just
Hmm.
about like how we feel, or what an event, or and the feelings associated with that, and then like how we coped with it, how we dealt with it, and that sort of thing. So it's just like you said when you were talking about the conversations, when you're done one of those episodes, and this happens to us too, we're like, wow, like this was really fulfilling, really amazing conversation, right? And it kind of fills your heart and fills your soul.
so do you have
No,
any
you're
questions
good.
to open with, or do you want me to?
Um,
So go ahead.
oh no, I was just gonna say. So I guess my first question is, and forgive me because I have not had a chance to do much delving into your guys' website. But for how long have y'all been doing your podcast? Like through.
You're breaking up a little bit, but I think the question was, how long have you guys been doing your podcast?
Oh, we started. We're coming up on actually a year in like a
couple
week and
weeks.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, coming up on a year. I think our
I
first
think
episode
we
was
started September 26th. I
20.
looked today.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that was our first release date. So just about a year, or yeah, just about a year.
just about a year.
It is very polished for only being a year old. The first Ben and I doing this, we put out some real stinkers of some episodes, just not having any idea what we were doing.
If you listen
Um,
to episode 0, that's
hmm
where we, like, introduce the podcast and introduce ourselves, like,
Yeah.
it's pretty rough. And so episode 0 is 17 minutes long, right? We both tell our stories and, how we came up with the idea for the podcast. It took us, like, 3 hours
To
just to
record.
record that because we were so, like, awkward. We didn't know what to say. It was terrible. So if you want to hear our rough stuff, go back to the very beginning. It's there. It's definitely there.
Oh, it was. We that episode, recording that episode, her and I were just howling. We're all we have to. We had it written out, right? All we have to do is like say the things we both wrote out, butcher after butcher after butcher, and then we were finally like, I'll try my best to take, like, we just accepted it for what it was. We actually plan on going back to that episode and redoing the welcome to through the last episode 0, and cleaning it up, but we haven't yet. But if you want to listen to that's the fun one. That's the one that makes us both cringe.
Yeah.
Well, actually sent me a Discord message
Yeah, we started on here,
when I was like
Discord.
1 month sober, and that's how we started talking.
And
Yeah.
did you guys meet through the I Am Sober app, or how did that okay.
Yeah, so we met through the I'm Sober app, and I was hosting. It wasn't her first meeting, but I was hosting the September meetings. They're not associated with the app. There's a group of people that host recovery meetings on the app, and I was hosting the September meetings. I ended up hosting September and October, the Tuesday night meeting, and this is how we kind of met. I was hosting the meetings. She showed up at the meeting, and about a month later, I sent a message. She wrote a post on the I Am Sober, and then she deleted it. And so I was just like, normally when someone deletes something, it like, why did you delete it, right? Curious. So she was on Discord, so I sent her a message.
Yep. How we did was about so for I'm guessing most of your people have no idea what I am sober. Sober is an app. It's a free app that you can download. And it's just this massive community of sober people. And it lets you just talk to other people going through the same things as you. It's an incredible app. And I'm not advertising for them, I promise. They're not paying, but that app saved my
It
life.
it truly is an amazing app, especially when you feel like you're lost in the weeds of, like, starting your sober journey and you don't even know where to go or what to do or who to talk to. That free app and that community of people, you're like, "Oh, shit, I'm not the only one who thinks like this." Like, there
Yeah.
are literally millions of people who suffer with the same things that I do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's just an incredible place. But anyway, I wrote this post on that app about how, like, a month into my sobriety, I felt like I had finally found real friends for the first time in my life. And so I was going to these meetings and I was having those conversations like you're talking about, right? Where you end up with a group of strangers and suddenly you're like having real meaningful conversation. And so I was all like, I posted it and then I was all embarrassed and I'm like, oh my gosh, I've only known these people for a month. I can't be like, I love you. So then I deleted it and Steve was like, why'd you do that? And a friendship was born.
And so was a podcast, and actually this is essentially our second podcast.
Mhm.
Oh,
We took a first go at this on the Sobertown podcast. There is, what is there, 8 episodes or 9 episodes, Julie? 8
Yeah,
episodes
something like that.
of Rewired. So there's a recovery book, and it's called Rewired, written by Erica Spiegelman, and uh, the man who runs Sobertown podcast got in touch with her and her book, and he found it and all that stuff, and he wanted someone to host a podcast about the book, right? With the book as the framework for the podcast. So,
interesting.
Yeah, I was in a meeting with him and he's like, do we have anybody that would be interested in hosting a podcast about Rewired? And I was like, me. I had never even listened to a podcast, I don't think, at that point. Um, I just love that book so much. I was like, anything I can do to help more people find out about this book, like, the book was so powerful for me. So I absolutely volunteered to host a podcast, and I was 2 months sober, maybe. I mean, we're talking it was early on.
it
And
was November.
then afterwards, I was like, oh shit, what did I just volunteer myself for?
Yep.
But it's started an incredible adventure. I'm so glad that I did that and like went out on a limb and
Guess who she sent a message to ask to be the co-host?
That would be, I'm going to say Steve.
Yes. Excellent call. She sent me a message and she was like, "Would you be my co-host?" And I was just like, "Sure. Let's do it."
Let's do it.
had no idea. So
We had
it's
no
been a
idea.
neat learning experience.
Yeah, so if you want to really listen to like the very first episodes, there's 8 episodes of Rewired on the Sobertown podcast, probably in the high 200, or sorry, high 100s, because they
Yeah.
have like 300 some odd episodes now.
Mm.
but in the high 100s is we put out, what was it, an episode a week, an episode every 2 weeks, something like that. Anyways,
We
we
had no
put out
consistency. That wasn't a
no
word we knew yet.
no, but that's where we really got started, was there.
Mm.
Yeah.
And now you just got back from going to where Julie lives. I don't want to like dox or anything, or like it was for your birthday, right? Is that right?
Yeah. So I live in Colorado. It's totally okay. It's a big state. They're not gonna find me. But yeah, Steve and stayed for like 3 weeks. So he's from Canada, like 1,600 miles between us, and he came and stayed for like 3 weeks, just to hang out, and we went hiking and we worked on the podcast together. We did all kinds of stuff. It was amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I went on a serious road trip.
Oh, you drove down?
Serious
Ben-
one.
Oof.
Oh yeah, I drove from. I live 2 hours outside of Toronto. I drove from here.
Oh, you're not
All the
terribly
way
far
up.
from where I'm at.
Where are you from?
Well, I'm in Jersey, so Buffalo is only 7 hours from me. So Toronto's like another 30 minutes across the
Okay.
lake.
Not terribly far, and we're on our way to New Hampshire at the beginning of October.
Oh, nice.
So we'll be
Yeah.
even closer.
Even closer. Yeah. Sorry,
Ah.
not to derail your story of your road trip.
No, that's all good. So I made my way up to Rapid City, South Dakota, and I drove through Minneapolis, met a friend.
Mhm.
Rapid City, South Dakota, met a friend. Then ended up in Glacier National Park, and I made my way down to Yellowstone and Grand Teton, and like through the mountains down to Colorado, where I then I hung out with Julie for 3 weeks. It was awesome.
Nice. That's a cool road trip. That would have been a cool road trip.
All in my truck.
Nice.
Like I didn't stay in a hotel room. I lived in
Just
my truck. I've got
truck
it set up in my
truck
truck.
camping. Heck yeah.
Yeah, I got it set up in my truck. I've got a mattress. I got pull-out storage. I got a raised topper on it. Like, it's all basic, but it's so perfect and beautiful. It's awesome.
And it saves
That's-
money.
That's living.
Oh, it seriously does. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't have done that
Right.
otherwise, because it would have cost me way, way more money. But just
Mhm.
because there's so many places that you can find that are free to park somewhere and spend the night, and it takes a little bit of work. You like filter your water and muck around, and
Yeah.
if you want to reduce cost, but it's not hard and it is fun.
And
Yeah,
that's
them
one of
like
these
us.
massive benefits of the whole online community. And we've met so many people in person that, we've met on Zoom meetings, we've met on apps, and we've met in these like virtual sober communities, and we've traveled all over the place and just met people that we've really connected with. It's been incredible. And we've even done like these big, huge meetups with lots of people. And we did one in Moab, Utah. And I kind of told my mom what I was doing. And she's like, "So you are driving out to the desert to go hang out with a bunch of alcoholic internet strangers?" I was like, "Yes, basically, that is what
Yes.
I'm about to go do."
Correct.
These are my
Bingo.
people, Mom.
Yeah, good. Right on. I know.
Nailed
Well, and
it.
it's like everything we were always taught. Don't ever tell anybody your real name. Don't ever meet
Right.
anybody, from the internet. And it's turned into an amazing experience. It's definitely different now, but as far as like, it's more normal to meet people that way, but
Right.
it's been really cool.
That's awesome.
The sober community is such an interesting community in the sense that people, any person that I've met in that community is so accepting and so like wanting to help others. And I feel like that maybe comes from a place of most people don't get sober on a whim. Most get sober from hitting rock bottom and having to climb your way out of it. And I think there's a bond there with other folks that have been through a similar type of rock bottom experience that you just don't really get with other strangers. You know what I mean? Um, and the whole like I almost hate the word sober at this point in my life. Because like I, telling people that like you don't drink, I was just at a concert when Ben was here.
Yeah.
My sister and brother are in a band. They had an album release party, 400 or 500 people there. And thank God for Liquid Deaths.
I was just about to say,
Because
good thing there was liquid death there to make it look like you had something.
That's a-
it at least looks like I have something, but people still come up to you and they're like, "Oh, you're not drinking?" Especially people that I haven't seen in a while or whatever. And I was reading a quote on the internet the other day or a video, whatever. It's like alcohol is the only drug in the world where people walk up to you and be like, "Oh, you don't use this drug?" Like people wouldn't walk
Yeah.
up to you with a needle of heroin and be like, "You want some?" Oh, he's declining because he must have had problems with heroin in the past.
Right.
Right.
Or when
Yeah.
people aren't like, you're not smoking a cigarette and they're like, "Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Why aren't
Well,
you smoking?"
yeah,
Yeah.
well,
Right?
with the prevalence of like
Mhm.
marijuana becoming more and more legalized everywhere, I'll go out with friends or people that I aren't in the middle. I don't know if Alex told you guys, but I'm in the military, so I cannot partake in that anymore. And so they'll
Yep.
always ask me like, "Oh, hey, do you want some?" And I'm like, "No, I can't." And they're like, "Why?" And I usually brush it off. I'm just like, "Well, Uncle Sam would be
Yeah.
very disappointed in me, and then I would be homeless and jobless." And they're like, oh, okay, my bad, dude." But it's like that is like almost as prevalent as as alcohol now,
Yeah.
with people asking whenever you go out
What?
somewhere.
Yeah. It's like, why? That's the funny part. I'm listening to you, and somebody's asking you why you don't want to get fucked up. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
why don't you want to get fucked? Because I enjoy my life just the way it is.
Right.
Thank
Like
you.
the
Like,
turnaround question could almost be, why do you want to get fucked up? Like what's so
right.
wrong?
Oh, it's
Or
a great
I wouldn't
question
say
to
I don't
ask
want to say
people.
wrong, but like what's so like what's going on in your life that you feel the need to just get like absolutely like wasted? Right. And like
Yeah, no,
I'm
that's
not
a great
yeah.
response.
Like I'm not sober
What
by any means, but I am definitely participating in a dry September just because I did drink quite a bit this summer, and I got to September and I was like, yo, I feel disgusting. I need to like cool it for a minute.
Hmm.
Um so yeah, but it's like I mean I have fun without like alcohol. Like right now at this point in my life, it's just like a social thing. But yeah, it's just like sometimes I gotta take a step back, and so far I feel a lot better, honestly. Like drinking has its place, but like not drinking, the amount of like just better you feel about
Hmm.
yourself, like I don't feel
Yeah.
like as bloated and all that like mess anymore. I'm like, dang, is this how Alex feels all the time? Like this is over
It's
here
amazing.
pounding
That's why
strawberries and cream Dr. Peppers and he doesn't feel bloated at all. This is what
I'll tell you what, there's no better sight in the world than cracking like a 12 pack of strawberries and cream Dr. Peppers and loading those puppies up in the fridge and looking at them being like, "Oh, I got a full 12er on deck. Let's go. It's gonna
we're
be a
getting wild tonight,
weekend,
baby. I got
boy.
a 12 pack of
It's gonna be a
D
weekend."
Pippy. Got a 12 pack of D Pippy. We going hard this weekend.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's and sobriety looks so different for everybody,
Hmm.
and uh, obviously sober, and I take that title very seriously, and it's not like I'll give you an example. There was a whiskey company that came out with God, I don't even remember. It was like a vanilla type whiskey, and like I wanted to taste it, so I stuck my finger in and like tasted it, and then of course, like I'm looking at my friends like eat, eat. Oh God, oh shit, I caught it again. I caught it. And then I don't want to joke. I know there are people that like if they tasted that, it seriously might trigger something where they're like,
Right.
"Hey, actually I'll take, just half a shot of that." And then that half
Mhm.
shot
Mhm.
turns to a
Yeah.
shot.
Hmm.
We won a golf tournament and they filled the cup with beer and they were passing it around to everybody and I took a sip, you know what I mean? So like I take the sober term very seriously. But I also want to put it into context. Like I take it very seriously. I have had the taste of alcohol on my lips, but for me, that's not going to send me spiraling into like a bender, you know what I
Right.
mean? And there are people who do that, and there are other people, maybe like Ben, who say, you know what, for September, sobriety looks good for September.
Mhm.
And from both the non-sober side, and there are some podcasts that I found from the sobriety side that are like the teetotaler type, it's like calling people who drink alcohol normies and shit like that. I'm like, okay, well, let's not do that. Like, let's just let people live their lives maybe and not, be so judgmental. And
Yeah.
that stigma just drives me crazy, and
Hmm.
it comes from both sides. It
Mhm.
really, like
Yeah.
I said, the word sober almost like, I'm so sick of saying it and hearing people say it. I'm like, just let me do my thing. Just let me live my life, be healthy, have a good relationship with my wife and my stepdaughter, and then you worry about your shit. I'll worry about mine, you know?
Mhm. That stigma is like it's so awful what
Hmm.
we end up facing. And there's so many people that hate the labels. They don't want to be called an alcoholic or an addict and that's totally understandable because when you think of an alcoholic, what do you think about? Like you think about, the homeless guys under the
Hmm.
bridge crowded around the fire in the barrel, right?
Right.
And I mean forever I wasn't going to go to like meeting or even consider the fact that I might be addicted to alcohol because I'm like, well, I'm not like those people. Like I'm
Hmm.
not that's not me. I'm fine. Like my life's basically together and I would never have like actually talked to somebody because that's what people picture and there's this belief that people who become addicted to alcohol are bad people. And so I wasn't
Yeah.
going to admit it because that meant like I was failing morally, like on the, this moral level that I was this failure because
Hmm.
I got addicted to alcohol. And somebody told me once, and it was huge for me. She's like, you are a normal person that got addicted to an addictive substance. Like, maybe all the people who don't get addicted to it are the ones that aren't normal, right?
Yeah.
And I needed to hear that because that's exactly what alcohol is. It's an addictive substance. It's made
Hmm.
to be addictive. That's what
Mhm.
it does to your body. So it's not a moral failing. It's just all of us biologically reacting
Yeah.
in the way that our bodies are kind of meant to.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and those ones that don't get addicted to alcohol perhaps are addicted to cocaine. You never know. Their biological
or
makeup might be,
eating
or
or
eating, or like
shopping
whatever it is.
or
Yeah,
whatever.
everybody has a different, addiction that like feeds that
Mm.
portion of the brain that gives them that happiness and that thing. And it could be,
Dopamine.
yeah, that dopamine. It could
Dopamine.
be that
We
just, could
love
be anything.
dopamine.
Yeah, so you just gotta fill it with something else that gives you dopamine.
Yeah,
Mhm.
it's what it comes down to. We all have our own problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like one way or another. Some of us talk about ours more out loud, and I think when you talk about the stigma and stuff, Julie, at the same time, I think when you're okay or comfortable, I guess comfortable enough because to stand in front of the stigma and it's like I'll call myself all of the names. That's fine. I'm fine with it. It doesn't hurt my feelings. I have no issues or qualms. If somebody else hears me referred to that and it clicks with them
Mm-hmm.
and it gives them a chance and like, "Oh, damn. Okay. I can relate to that." And if that's good enough for me. That's plenty for me to stand in front of the stigma and be a loud voice and be a voice in the community. So someone else, because someone did that for me.
Mm-hmm.
Someone did that for me, and that helped me get out of my hole. So now I'm comfortable enough. Like there was a time where I wasn't. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
don't call me any of that, but you can call me whatever it is now. I'm comfortable with it. I just want to see people make their way out. That's what I want to see.
Yeah.
And it looks so different for everybody, and I
Yeah.
think that's what drives my kind of deep level of resentment towards like that blanket term, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? It looks so different for everybody. And I think that's why podcasts like yours are so important apps like the I Am Sober app are so important because it gives you, it allows you to put it into context of, oh, yeah, no, it's not just homeless people clutching the brown bottle as you walk past them on the street that are alcoholics. Matter
Yeah.
of fact, when you Google the term alcoholic, not only is it kind of a vague terminology, but then you find out if you go to the doctor to try to get diagnosed with alcoholism, he's not going to be able to give you a diagnosis without talking to you and then really saying, well, you got to kind of make the decision if you're an alcoholic for yourself. It's
Hmm.
like, well, what the hell? That's
Well,
not what I thought this was. Like, that,
right.
what? I
Well,
thought I could
and
go to the doctor and he'd be like, bro, you're an alcoholic. Turns out that's the case.
so
I
the
thought the doctor I thought
There's
the
a
doctor
really
was gonna tell me that I was an alcoholic, which is why I didn't go.
well, it does.
and it's fair to say, if you're wondering if you're an alcoholic,
Mhm.
you
Probably.
probably are. Like
Yeah.
you might want to address some
Yeah. Well,
things.
so it's super interesting. So Alex will say, you go to the doctor like on the civilian side, and they'll be like, I don't know, you figure it out. It's interesting when you get in trouble with alcohol on the military side, they automatically just jump to that. They're like, you're an alcoholic. Here's all these programs, go. And you're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I might not actually be an alcoholic. This might have just been one bad like party night, and I was in the potentially the wrong place, wrong time, or we just we had a really good night, and some people weren't driving with the good night we had, and now here I
Mhm.
am in trouble and getting labeled as an like not me personally. It's all right,
Mhm.
but whoever's just like no, they are like I'm not an alcoholic. I was just like what. Like why do I have this label on me now? And now I have to go to these classes that I don't even want to go to because was at one party or whatever. Yeah, it's interesting and crazy to see the flip flop between the two sides of that coin between the military and civilian side.
About
I
the, yeah.
I used to think that literally what would define an alcoholic would be like if you would quit drinking, you'd get like the DTs, like you'd get like the delirium tremens or whatever you call them. So I'd quit drinking on a Monday and Tuesday. My hands ain't shaking, baby. We're good. Like I'm fine.
Mhm.
I don't have a chemical dependency. Wednesday night, hey, couple beers. Thursday night football. Well, then we
Hmm.
roll into Friday, Saturday, Sunday. A couple days off, we're good.
Right.
Maybe a glass of whiskey on Tuesday, maybe. Maybe one beer on Monday. Well, then,
Now we're
hell, next
back.
thing it's
Yeah.
every day, all the time. Can't figure out why I put on 30 pounds.
Hmm.
It's so
Uh-huh.
crazy how good your brain can become at tricking itself into going after what it is becoming chemically dependent on.
Right. Well, and
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, when you
Yeah.
frame it like that, and I look back at like my last couple years of college, I look back on that and go, damn, I probably was like a functioning alcoholic. Because I was chunky and like the amount of times as I look back, I was like, damn, I was I would go to class, and then after I get done with classes for the day, it was hanging out with the boys, having drinks, and then whatever. I didn't want to go to this class. The girls were playing softball. We go out to the softball field, watch them, more drinks and stuff like that. And then it just like kept going. And then, I look back now and I was like, dang, I was pretty like tuned up most nights through college. And then, Saturday and Sunday we go out to the bars. And then from there, I was like, I get to, I didn't I ended up getting like the DTs or anything like that, but I ended up going to boot camp and I, didn't have a drop of alcohol for 3 months. And then I was like, dang. So then the first beer that somebody buys me on the plane ride home, I'm like buzzing off of one beer because we're just sitting on the tarmac. And I was like, oh, damn.
Lit. Yeah.
I was like, yo, we went hard for a while. And that 3 months, in boot camp really like fucking kind of put it in perspective for a second.
yeah. Well, and like for most of us, alcohol is like this, slightly unhealthy coping mechanism. We
Hmm.
use it to deal with the pressure and stress of college or
Right.
of parenting. Mine was parenting little kids, right? Or to get through social situations because I'm painfully socially awkward. And so it was like my slightly unhealthy coping mechanism,
Hmm.
right? At some point, for those of us who just have that addiction tendency, it switches from being a coping mechanism to a crutch.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden, alcohol's not going to make it easier for me to parents like it used to. Alcohol is necessary for
Necessary,
me to
right?
parents
Yeah.
Yeah.
now. And you don't realize when that transition happens until it
Mhm.
has happened and you are stuck in it.
Yeah.
And then you're like, shit, I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
do something
What
about it.
Kristen just pointed out in the chat, she goes, "It's so ingrained in society that it's hard to pinpoint when it becomes a problem." And
Right.
like, it's true,
Exactly.
and that's how it was for
and
like college, because it was just like part of the culture. It's just what happens in
Mhm.
college, and then you get out and you're like, "Oh dang, dude, I was deep, like I was
Yeah.
swimming in it, basically."
Well, mine was
And
mommy wine culture, right? It's just
Mm,
accepted that the moms are going to be going around with their little sippy cup or their
I know.
coffee cup,
Yep,
and you
I
know it's not
was.
coffee in there.
No, I was just about to say it's a big thing on. It was a big thing on Instagram on the reels for a little while. They're like, "Oh, these Stanley cups can fit like an entire bottle of wine in them," and I'm just going on, a walk around the neighborhood with the other wives, and you're like,
yeah.
"All right, mom, chill." Like
Yeah.
that's still public
Yeah.
intoxication,
Yeah.
Right. Like that's not normal. And for some
right?
That's
reason, we all have been led to believe that that's totally a normal, necessary part of life if we want to be happy
Mm-hmm.
and functional. It's crazy what society has tried to force us to believe.
it works until it doesn't, and you
Mm-hmm.
don't know the doesn't part until it's way too late.
Yeah.
And you can sit down and talk with someone and be like, this could be you. I know I was that guy. We had a guy at work who came in. We had we called it safety day. I don't work there anymore, but we called it safety day. We had a guy who was an ex NHL hockey player who blew all of his money afterwards on booze and a bunch of other things, right? Ended up working in uh northern Alberta or something like that, out in the middle of nowhere, and he
Mm-hmm.
was an alcoholic and he was drinking and he was completely trashed on the job, blah blah blah, slipped, injured himself. He's alive and he goes around as a speaker and he tells his story, right? About him falling and almost dying
Mm.
at work because of it, and like he's still alive to tell the story. And so he's up there telling his story, and I'm the alcoholic who's already crossed the from it doesn't work to it doesn't work, but I don't know it yet, listening to him saying that won't be me. I'm not that bad. And as soon as you start saying I'm not that bad,
Mm-hmm.
that's like red lights and
Yeah.
flags and all of the other stuff, but like internally it doesn't, there's no I'm not flagging myself. I'm just
Yeah.
saying like that won't be me. Guess what?
Yeah.
I didn't get hurt at work, but that was me. I was drunk at work a fair amount of times, a lot.
Mm-hmm.
For the past year I was not proud of it. That's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And any of that could have happened. That literally could have been me. So it's really it sneaks up on you.
Yeah.
You don't know, and sneaks up
It's
on you, and it sits there, and it just becomes part of your destruction.
right, and then
Well, and it's
unfortunately,
like,
oh, no, go ahead, Julie.
I was just going to say, Alex was talking about it looks different for every person. And I think it's so important that people understand you don't have to hit rock bottom to decide
Hmm.
to just quit. Nothing horrible has to happen in your life. You don't have to lose your marriage and your kids and wreck your car and go to jail and all of these things in order to decide alcohol is not serving me,
Right.
right? Alcohol starts holding you back from living your best life immediately, basically. And so at some point, if you can just, if that's a true statement for you, alcohol is stopping me from living my very best life, it's okay to just quit then. Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to let it keep building up. And, you don't have to have a big dramatic reason for why you decide to quit.
Right. Yeah, and I was gonna say, like, unfortunately for I could be wrong, but I would say unfortunately for most people, it does take some like big rock bottom thing to finally wake them up. And I just say that from personal experience, not in regards to alcohol, but I'm a stubborn individual, and sometimes for a lot of things, it takes me hitting the final like wall, and I'm like, oh, here's the epiphany. Um,
Hmm.
so I think for a lot of people, it finally gets to that point where like they do, crash the car, get a DUI, or something
Right.
else like really big, and then that's finally like the wake up call, and they're like, oh
And
shit.
Hmm.
the saddest part about that is the other side of the coin. I've watched people hit rock bottom and still not change their ways because they're still convinced that they don't have a problem.
Hmm.
Yeah, and
That's the
and
saddest version of it.
Yeah.
there was a lady when I hit my 900 days. I went hiking. I went up Via Ferrata in Arapahoe Basin, Colorado, and she's an X-ray tech, and she was on this trip with me climbing up the side of this mountain, and I ended up telling her a little bit of my story and whatnot, and uh, she was telling me that she goes, I can't tell you how many times I've seen like really poor like livers that have gone
Hmm.
way overboard, and then we have to break the news to them that, you know, this is basically it for you. Like there's no going back because your liver is too bad. And then that's when they turn around and say, I'll change, I'll quit, and I'll change and I'll quit. And I'm
It's
like,
too
that
late.
breaks my heart. And she's I know it breaks mine too, but that's, I mean, it's kind of one why we do what we do, Julie, right?
Right.
Like those stories there are just
Yeah.
damn.
Well,
It
and some of those people that can't quit, or I say can't, haven't successfully quit yet, um, you know, they don't know how many options there are out there for support.
Hmm.
Essentially, when you decide you're going to quit drinking, pretty much the only thing anybody knows about is AA. And I'm not going to bash AA because it has saved countless
Hmm.
lives and it works perfectly for so many people, but it doesn't work for other people. And
Hmm.
people go to AA and they're like, it didn't work for me. And then they're like, I just can't do it. And I think that's where, it's almost taboo in the recovery world to be like, AA is not your only option.
Hmm.
There are so many other things you can do. You can, like the app, the IAS app. We host meetings that are, basically just like our podcast, where it's not any program. It's just people talking because that's what we need to do to recover. Steve, I'm a certified recovery coach. Steve's in the process of becoming certified too, and you can work one on one with someone in a way that works for you. Like there's so many options. Like Alex said, everybody's version of addiction looks different. Everybody's version of recovery looks different too.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
is so hard to get that information out there because AA is huge. And again, like, I think it's an incredible program. I know that if I thought that was my only option, I wouldn't be sober because it's just not something that resonates for me.
Yeah, well,
Same.
that's why I like in your
Same. I'm not
guys's.
a
Oh no, go ahead, Alex.
I was just gonna say I'm you said it perfectly, Julie. My thoughts on AA too. I'm glad it exists and I'm glad that it's an option for people and it's helped people. It's not really my cup of tea. It's not really exact. You just said it. If that was my only option, if I would have felt like that was my only option, I don't think I ever would have truly gotten sober. And the I Am Sober app honestly was like my kind of version of AA. Getting on there, especially when I was struggling. I'll never forget New Year's Eve last year. I was the biggest, poutiest baby in the world. Like my brain is like screaming at me for a glass of champagne at midnight. Like you want to talk about unconscious brain and conscious brain just like clawing at each other like I won't even say the words. But yeah, it was bad. Like, and I was pouty. I was like a 4-year-old, like, well, I guess I'll just go up to my room then at midnight and I'll just go to bed and not have my glass of champagne.
I
But
know that feeling.
Yeah.
Like I'm laughing because that has
Yeah.
been me before. Yeah.
and I tell that story because I did go to bed and I got on the I Am Sober app and there were so many people saying how hard that night was for them.
Yeah.
And although it didn't completely snap me out of my poutiness, it was just nice to be able to see all those people, dealing with the same thing. And if AA works for you, that's great. but there are so many other options out there. Podcasts. Your podcast is a perfect example of just one that's not preachy. It's not, again, calling people who drink normies or whatever. Like, just try to meet people where they are and just
Yeah.
share your stories and the options that are out there. And that's what I love most about y'all's podcast is it's not preachy. It's not like condemning people that do drink. Some are going through like a Narcotics Anonymous type program and maybe do enjoy a glass of wine. Like, that's fine. Nobody's sitting here telling you how to live your life, but you should know that there are other people out there that struggle with the same things that you do, you know.
Yeah.
It's connection beats addiction, right?
Yeah.
It
Amen.
above everything else, it's connecting with other people and talking to other people who feel the same way that you do and knowing you're not alone and sharing your stories and being vulnerable, like really talking about hard stuff. That's where the recovery happens. And I think, wherever you can find that, that's what's going to support you and give you what you need to be able to
Mhm.
actually do this successfully.
Yeah, I
Amen.
don't know that it has to be a program. I started out in AA. I don't anymore. Like it's where I went to. I struggled. I didn't really connect with it, but I tried. I sat there. I found a different avenue. The I Am Sober app. I've been on it since day 6, and eventually I went into that community. That's where my personal growth happened. That's where a lot of my growth happened, where I really got to express. It's the conversations that we have on our podcast is literally a replica of the breakout rooms and the meetings that we went to.
Mhm.
And it worked so well for us because it was so accepting of anyone and their problems and their recovery path, right? AA, smart recovery, Dharma recovery, whatever your path was, it was fantastic to hear that perspective through that lens of recovery and then maybe apply it to my own life. So we wanted to take that openness and that honest conversation because that's what the meat and potatoes of my recovery is, and wanted to share that with everyone else. That's basically why we're doing what we're doing with the podcast.
Yeah, and I was gonna say earlier, that's why I like that blurb when I was on y'all's website. That connection beats addiction. I like that a lot, because that does like that cookie cutter AA thing doesn't work for everyone. Um, and kind of in the same vein, it's why I like having conversations with people with like relationship issues because I went through like the same thing. I've been divorced and that kind of stuff, but I don't mind sharing my story when people talk about their stuff because I'm like, hey, this is what I went through. If this helps, cool. This is my advice. This is what I learned from it. Take it or leave
Yeah.
it. But that
Mhm.
seems to like resonate more so with people than when they try and go just some like cookie cutter thing that's like, do these things, these steps, and this will save your marriage. Because when I was doing it, I went through a whole little like book and it didn't work because that doesn't, it doesn't work for everything. So I like having those connections with people, being able to talk to people and be like, this is my story, take it or leave it, but this is what helped me. I think that just boils down like just to humanity as a whole. Connections are more important than these kind of blanket programs because people strive for
Yeah,
that
well, we're
deep
not
down.
we're not cookie cutter humans,
Right.
Right.
right? And so cookie cutter programs of any kind for any problem aren't gonna work. That's kind of where I went with with my recovery coaching program. It's not you can't tell somebody follow these steps and you're going to
Hmm.
stay sober and be happy forever. It's not like that. It's, what's going on in your life,
Yeah.
what maybe
Yeah.
needs to be addressed, and then start exploring that and talk through it. But then also every single one of us who's willing to tell our stories have value.
Right.
Whether you're talking about something, in a relationship issue or you're talking about addiction, every story has value. And if we can use our stories just to help other people, and there's so, so much power in
Right.
that.
Which I think is why a lot of people kind of like fall off the, like as they say, fall off the wagon with AAs. You can kind of force yourself for a period of time to meet those milestones in AA, but eventually it just becomes like a chore, and people hate doing chores. And if it becomes
We call
something
it
that,
white knuckling.
yeah, like
Yeah.
if you're forcing yourself to do something at that point, eventually you're going to run out of the motivation to do it because it's going to feel too much like work. So,
It's funny you said it because it's going to feel too much like work, and I was the words in my head were like what I do for my recovery doesn't generally feel like work. There's some
mhm,
days where it feels like work, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like the things that I do to support my recovery, and that's on a daily basis, uh, are they don't feel like work. They're just part of my routine. They're part of my
mhm,
daily thing. And there's the people where AA works really well for them. It's part of
mhm,
their routine and it's part of their daily thing, and it works great, and that's fantastic. And it's what works for me, what doesn't work for me. This is part of the coaching, right? What works for me,
mhm.
what doesn't work for me. I need to remove this because it's not working for me, right? I need to insert something else and try something different, whatever that is. Pick.
Right.
Let's make a list and find out what that looks like for you.
Mhm.
And it's a tailored recovery. Let's build something. Let's help you build something for you that works for you.
Right. And I'm gonna tell this kind of on Alex's behalf because we did talk about it a little bit while I was there when we were actually heading out to play golf, and he was like, we were talking about it and everything. And he was like, I told Kristen, you got to pick one. Either I'm I'm drinking all the time again, or now I'm just playing golf all the time. So like, pick your evil. So like, I'm either gone for 4 hours at a day every other day, playing golf,
Yeah,
or I'm
yeah.
at home and incoherent. Like, which one do you want? And I mean, we laughed and joked about
Golf
it, but like,
doesn't sound so bad
that's
in that vein.
exactly. Like we like laughed and had a joke about it, but that's what worked, for Alex is, we'll just play golf some more.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, and
Uh,
I'm just stubborn enough that if you tell me I have to do something, or if it does feel like work, I'm gonna be like, "Oh, I have to do this? Okay,
Yeah.
watch.
Yeah,
Watch
right.
me go do the exact opposite."
Opposite.
Or if
Yeah.
it feels like work, nah, I'd rather not,
yeah.
So you have to find your own ways, to get through it and to navigate through it because it's not easy and it sometimes it does feel like work, but I can promise you if you make it feel like an obligation, at some point in time the walls are gonna break, at least for me.
Yeah.
You listen to some of these old timers talk, and they're like, I don't know, it sounds like, it's all such a miserable thing, and you got to do this and you got to do that, and your addictions, what do they say, like your addictions doing push-ups in the
Push-ups in the
parking
parking
lot,
lot.
waiting for you to be complacent, and it sounds like terrifying and miserable, and none of them seem very happy, and you're like, so I have a choice between drinking my life away or living like that. Like those are my
Hmm.
two choices. And I mean, for the most part, recovery is freaking fun. My
Hmm.
life is
Yeah.
so much fun and I love it. I always say create a life so full there's no space left for alcohol. It's like my tagline, right? I actually got it
Hmm.
tattooed on my arm. But
It's more
my
than a
life,
tagline.
it
You are
is.
living. You are living it.
It is. It is right
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But it is so true. If you get rid of alcohol, you have all of this opportunity to bring these things into your life and create this life that is absolutely fulfilling and wonderful and amazing to live. And you can't convince somebody of that in the beginning of when somebody's just starting out, they're like they can't even fathom how good life can get. Like they've never experienced it before and it's not even something that they could possibly imagine. Like the way how free you feel and how
Hmm.
capable and confident and like self-worth and then like the courage to do all of these things you would never do. I mean, me being on a podcast, that's huge. But it changes everything and you can't there's no way to explain that to somebody. You have to be like, just trust me. It's
Hmm.
gonna get better. But you don't have to. It doesn't have to look like those old timers that are just sitting
Trudging
there
along.
grumpy and like slogging through life. Like you should
Yeah.
not be slogging through life. If you are, you're doing it wrong.
Right. Yeah, I remember that when Alex first started his first couple months of recovery. Like I mean, obviously I'm there, we're very close. So yeah, I'd get those text messages like, brother, this day sucked. And I'm like, I get it, dude. Like I obviously, I'm not on like that same path, but I'm here for you. I'll listen to whatever you got to tell me. I know it sucks, but trust me, it's going to be better on the back end.
Mhm.
Well, it does sneak up on you in such a way that when you finally do quit drinking, you're like, "Oh shit, no, like my brain is telling me like I need this," you know? And you're stuck looking yourself in the mirror like, "How did I let it get like this?" You know? Like, how did and now it sucks cuz I'm pouty or like I'm not having a great day or I was listening to a podcast early on, a lot of really great podcasts too. Just quick Google search. I won't list them all, other than Through the Glass. Download, subscribe, listen to Through the
The
Glass.
link to the
That's the
website with the
best one.
podcast is in the description.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
somebody was talking about their recovery, and this actually might have been like Russell Brand or somebody like that. Somebody
Mm.
that is sober now, calling their mentor or whatever their sponsor through AA, you know, like a week into their sobriety and saying, "Man, I'm having a tough day." You know, like that bottle's calling my name. I'm having a tough day. And he thought his mentor was gonna like have some words of wisdom or some like line of poetry. He goes, "Yeah, dude, that shit sucks. You're just gonna have to white knuckle it today." It's like, that's it?
That's the
That's
best
all
you
you
got
got
for me?
There's no magic. That's the
Yeah.
frustrating part.
That's
There's
it.
no
That's
magic.
the truth
Yeah.
of it. Yeah, it's gonna suck. It's gonna be a tough day. But you know what would be worse is getting all lit up tonight and waking up tomorrow morning and having a headache and being like, shit, why did I do that? Now I have to start again. You
Mhm.
know, there are some days in sobriety where you do just have to white knuckle it. But if you can get through that, it gets a lot easier. And you can spend a Sunday going to an escape room with your family
Yeah.
and coming home and doing a podcast and not being like, how many beers can I get in before we go to the escape room? Oh, and by the way, on the way home from the escape room, we're going to have to stop and get a six pack because I can't do a podcast sober. That sounds horrible and boring. You know, like you can do things like that and it
Yeah.
gets better, you know, and you can sit and drink Pepsis and do things. It doesn't have to be awful. And if you can get through the initial process, it gets a lot better. It gets a lot easier. You just got to keep fighting the good fight.
And then you can really treat yourself to a fully loaded Pepsi too.
Drink them diesels, boy. It was Texas football weekend. It's
I
funny.
know. I
I
have
make a
conflicted
lot of
feelings about
jokes.
that, but at least you made Arkansas have a better record than Alabama for at least a week, so we'll let it ride.
Well, and watching the game last night, one of my best friends came over and he brought a 12-pack of White Claws, you know, and I'm making the same joke. So I got the fully leaded Pepsis, you know, and you can sit there like we both had a fantastic time watching that game. You know, we both had a great time and drink your White Claws if you want to drink your White Claws, drink your Pepsi, whatever. Just do what you got to do to live a good and fulfilling life to where your wife or your significant other doesn't hate you because you're continually screwing up and messing up. It
Or so
be it
you don't hate yourself.
Yeah.
yeah. The
Excuse
amount of
me.
sober people that I have heard on podcasts or interviews that say they start looking in the mirror and reflecting on alcohol and why they chose to get sober and start looking in the past and realizing that all of the worst things that have happened to them in their life have all revolved around alcohol. Case poster
Yep.
child, you know.
Yeah.
A DUI didn't wake me up. 2 MIPs in my 20th year of life didn't wake me up. You know, oh, that's just wrong place, wrong time. Really unfortunate. Well,
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, I was riffing there and then I had another question in my head and it dropped out. Ben, what more questions do you have?
It dropped out. I love it.
I don't know if I've got any. I've been just enjoying listening to the conversation happen. Honestly, it's been good, loving it.
I do want to say if any of your listeners are resonating with anything that we're talking about, we do have meetings where you can just show up and hang out and talk. It's not AA, it's just people. And we welcome everybody, no matter where you are in recovery or what you're recovering from. We have people who are, dealing with drug addiction and alcohol and whatever. But all of that information's on our website, and we would be happy to have anybody who, even if they're just hearing some things and they're like, oh, maybe I should be thinking about things differently. So yeah, it's through theglassrecovery.com.
Yep, it's in. It's in the description now underneath our live video, and it'll stay there once this is over, and then it'll go in the show notes for those of you that listen, wherever you listen to your podcasts. It'll be in those show notes as well, so you can just click on that link or copy paste it into the Google search bar right to their website. It's a very beautiful website. It's very colorful. And there's lots of.
I learned how to build a website in 2 weeks so that we could have a website when we decided we were going to start a podcast.
That's a lot of work.
Thank you. That made my day.
Good. It's a lot of work. I remember I was in a computer class in high school where we had to build the website, and good Lord, that was back in like 2011, and I was like, dang. So I can't even imagine what it's like now.
Yeah, well, when we okay, so I'm gonna reference a golfing term of mine just for Alex here. So I call it trunk slamming. You show up at the golf course, you grab your stuff, slam your trunk, and you hurry up and get to the first hole as fast as you can because your tee off time.
Because your tee
is
time,
like
you're
5
very late.
minutes. Yeah.
You're very late to your tee time.
Right? Trunk slamming. We did that with this podcast through the glass bar. We trunk slammed the podcast. We turned around and said, okay, what was it, the beginning of September? We're going to start a podcast. We're finally, like, we had thought about it since.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, we need to pick a day because we keep talking about it and we haven't done anything about it.
So, like 3 weeks, we recorded 4 episodes. She built a website and we released.
Wow.
Steve learned how to edit audio.
I heard.
That's the worst. God, I hate that.
I love editing audio. That's one of my things.
You are one of the few. Because audio is the worst thing to try and fix. I've been through that where I've edited videos and everything like on audio and that stuff. Oh, it's such a pain. And I'm so much of a perfectionist.
Trunk slamming, Alex. We trunk slammed the podcast.
That's fantastic. And I honestly would have never guessed. Because it does, and I'm not just saying this to make you feel good. Like your podcast sounds very professional and tailored. Your website looks really good. I would highly recommend following them on Instagram too if you're an Instagram type of person. I enjoy it. That's how I keep up with you guys most is by following the Instagram, and it's not all just like woo woo, like, oh, sober life is so beautiful, again, there's some, and I'm glad that people are sober and they do whatever they do to make their lives fulfilled, but there is some that I'm just not a big fan of. Like, it doesn't necessarily fill up my bucket, if you will. But I do really enjoy y'all's content and your Instagram. It's fun to watch. It's not all the same. There's clips of you guys on the side of a mountain, like hiking up the mountain. I'm like, oh, look, holy hell, there's Julie. Yeah, there's Steve. They're on the mountain. Like, look at them go.
There's a little bit of sober life for you.
A little bit of sober life. Yo, no. when we were on the side for her birthday when we did the Via Ferrata, we both looked at each other and it was like, you imagine if we were drinking and doing like this would never happen. First of all, second of all, this would
happen.
Oh yeah, second of all, it would be freaking miserable.
Like hungover? Like I would have been hungover if I was in my drinking days. We had to start at like 8 o'clock in the morning. Guaranteed, I would have been miserable hungover, and then I'd be like crossing crazy like cable bridges across this gorge while I would definitely have been puking. I mean, no doubt.
it would have been bad because like wake up, we couldn't sleep in because it was a 2.5 hour drive.
Yeah.
Right. So you're up super early. Yeah. Like the whole thing, just the whole thing. Like none of that happens. And if it does, it's really, really miserable. And at the end, you're like, yeah, it was awesome because you have to say that. And then you're like, oh God.
Now we have to go back down.
Help.
Get me to a bar. Where's the beer?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
exactly
So
what I would have
crazy.
been thinking too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Up early, hungover, maybe
Yeah.
a little mimosa,
Little hair
go
of the dog to
climb
get
a
you going.
mountain.
Yeah.
Yep, go
Yeah.
climb a mountain, and then where's the beer?
Well,
You
yeah.
And
know,
Well,
not
like
really remember it, right?
Yeah.
There's
exactly.
so many hikes that I did where, like, I know I was there because I'm in the pictures, but I don't actually even really remember the experience. Like, even when I wasn't an, a quote unquote alcoholic, even when it wasn't really a problem yet, I can still look back at things I did. Like in my 20s, I really didn't drink a lot, but anything that I did drink through, I definitely wasn't present for it, and I don't remember it very well at all. You know, it changes everything. Even the littlest bit of alcohol changes everything.
It
Yep.
really does.
It
I'm going
does.
on a little mini golf trip to Kansas City this weekend with some friends, and I know they're going to be drinking heavy. And I can't wait for that first Friday morning to be up brewing some coffee, just play like some super loud music and watch them all kind of come crawling out of
Stumble
their
out of the rooms
caves.
like,
And
Alex, please, for the
good
love of
morning,
God, turn
boys.
it down.
And he's
So
just gonna be like skipping and be like, "Yep, no, all
Dance
good,
around, groove
all
it.
see you guys
good."
at the driving range. I'll be
Yeah.
putting.
And they're out
Yeah.
there just shanking and topping their first shots of the day.
Just
Yep.
Yeah.
listening to my podcast, putting, you
Yeah.
know, just listening to
Life is
birds.
That's
so different
the
now.
worst. And you're just trying to squeeze some food down before they get out because you know that if they eat, they're gonna feel a little bit better,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
And sweating. Like,
Oh,
oh
God.
God. Oh man. Oh, here we go. Oh, all right. Oh no.
Shoot, I mean, I went and played a round of golf in like the heat after a night of drinking before just to sweat the demons out because I knew I was like, I'm gonna take me a jug of water, and I was like, I gotta get these out. I gotta get these out. I'm gonna do something that I mildly enjoy. That's just try and do something here.
See, that's where you and I are different because I would have been on the golf course, but I would have been hair of the dog, straight hammering away
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
And
I was
I'll
like,
worry
I need.
about this problem tomorrow.
I was like,
Right.
But
Yeah.
today,
4
And then when-
ibuprofen and a jug of water on the golf course. Like, sweat the demons out. We're gonna get through this.
Yeah, see, you're like sweat the demons out. I'm gonna get through this, and we're like sweat the demons out, feed the demons.
feed that
We're
demon,
feed the
baby.
demon.
Right?
Keep the
They
demons
will
at bay.
calm down, right? And then I will golf. Man, I'll just get all loosened up. That's swing lube. That's what I used to call it. Swing
Mhm.
Yep.
lube, right? Just get all.
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
be good to go after the 9th, right?
Swing
Like,
lube and a little
just
bit of
at the
birdie
turn.
juice.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. Well, we're pretty much at an hour, right, Ben?
Yeah, just a tick over.
Right on.
Just a
And I
tick
don't want
over.
to keep
So
you guys too much longer, but
yeah, no.
it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, no, it's
This
been
hour
super good.
flew by.
It has.
Thank you guys
Yeah,
so
it did.
much.
Great
Thanks for the invite.
conversation. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Great
we
conversation.
Really appreciate it.
It's been fun. Had some yucks.
Super
Yeah.
cool to get to know you guys.
Yeah,
It is for sure.
And I will be super excited to be on your podcast coming up here soon
Yeah.
ish. And this will be live on YouTube.
Literally as
Steve,
soon
I
as I
sent you our
hit
link.
end stream.
I sent you our link tree stuff. So if you guys want to share it, you don't have
Mm-hmm.
to by any means. That's not like part of the terms and conditions. Like you must share this on your Instagram. Like
Not yet. We don't have
share it if you
contracts.
want.
We don't have contracts
You-
written out for our guests, but that's coming. No.
No.
I'm kidding.
I'm sure
I'm
we
kidding.
can make something happen there.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure. We'll get it
Yep.
shared.
Yep.
If you want to, great. If not, that's cool too. But it'll be I'll get the audio up on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that stuff tomorrow afternoon. So
Awesome. Okay.
Yep, but this for
Really
everybody
cool.
else, yep, it'll be as soon as this stream is over, it will live on YouTube forever underneath the live tab when you go to our channel. So that's where you can find
Awesome.
all of our live stream
Forever.
podcasts forever. Well, until the internet decides it wants to cease to exist.
until AI takes over.
The AI
Julie-
takes over and the inevitable EMP apocalypse comes.
Julie, the look on your face, forever.
Oh no, people will see this. Look, guys, she combed her hair for this, okay?
Yeah.
He did.
She combed her hair on the off chance we would have video, which we do.
I had no idea that it was video, so
But yeah, no, but for y'all out there, again, the link to Julie and Steve's website is down below in the description through the glassrecovery.com. It's down there, take you right to their beautifully made website where you can find all of the resources that you need. If you need, if you're struggling, you need some help, or if you just want to check out their podcast, that's all there. It'll be in the show notes when Alex uploads that stuff tomorrow. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this one, then definitely go check them out because these guys rock.
awesome. Thank you guys
And
so
yeah.
much.
Thank
course.
you guys.
and my Twitter handle is in on the starting page too. DM me. You guys know my DMs are always open. If you want to talk to somebody who's been through it firsthand, I'm happy to help anybody that I can. And honestly, a really good first place to start that's not super intimidating is through the Glass Recovery podcast and Instagram, or download the I Am Sober app.
Yeah.
It'll count your sober days for you. It's free. There's a huge community of people. It's almost like a Twitter or like not really Facebook of like sober people.
Yeah.
They're posting, they're sharing their stories. I guess you can share pictures on there too.
Mhm.
You can.
That's
It's
how.
pretty intimate. It's pretty basic, but it works exactly the way it needs to. It really does.
Well, that's
And you
how I
can stay
found
completely
YouTube.
anonymous. That is a
Yeah.
big part of it.
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
that's how we met Alex too. So
Yep. Very
That's
true.
exactly right. Yep.
cool.
There you go.
Definitely check it out.
All right. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks again, y'all, for coming on. Really enjoyed it. And we're not just saying that because that's what you do on podcasts. I did have a great time talking with you guys. Any friend of Alex's is a friend of mine. So,
Thank you
Awesome.
guys so much.
yeah.
We appreciate it. It's
For
been
sure.
good
Yeah,
to
we
talk
do.
with you.
And we sign off every show by telling the listeners to make sure, if you're listening to this podcast right now, make sure you tell someone you love them this week. Okay. Think of somebody you haven't talked to in a while. Maybe somebody you just talked to yesterday and you're like, dang it, I forgot to tell that person that I love them. Tell somebody you love them because life is short, it's precious. Tomorrow's not promised. So reach out, tell somebody you love them. And I love all you guys. Big hearts.
Big hearts
loves,
all around.
and hook 'em horns.
Well, pump the brakes. Woo pig. All right, y'all.
That's that diesel.
That's that diesel.
I got
It's a
that
diesel.
caffeine and sugar.
Yep. Yep.
Exactly. All right. Well, until next week, y'all, have a safe week. Have a good week. And like we said, tell somebody you love them. All right. Peace.
Love you guys.